time, in a flash of light and energy. That's in his book, God and the Astronomers. So now we're going to look at this amazing design code called DNA, desoxyribonucleic acid. It's actually a helix, you've probably heard about that. It's made of 4 amino acids called adenine, thymidine, guanine and cytosine. It's a very, very complex molecule. It's the computer storage medium of the human body. It's actually a 3 out of 4 digital code. Now we have computers and basically they're in their hard disk, they're a whole series of noughts and ones. This is far more complicated. In fact, I want to tell you how complicated it is. If you've got all the information on all the hard disks and all the mainframe computers all over the planet, you could concentrate all that information on one pinhead of DNA. That's how powerful a storage medium DNA is. And it has all the details on DNA of all our particular cells, our liver cells, our heart cells, our kidney cells, our brain cells, our bone cells, all the cells we have, and also has lots of information about our height and our personality and our intelligence and how we walk and talk and think and reproduce and fight off viruses and bacteria and all sorts of other things, all coded into our individual DNA. And it's been calculated mathematically using switching theory, which I won't go into now, that the chances of one DNA molecule occurring randomly by chance anywhere, the evolutionists talk about the primordial slime, but anyway, the chance of occurring randomly is 1 chance in 10 with 53 noughts after it. A colossal number, which is completely impossible by chance, because mathematicians say anything with a chance greater than 10 to the power of 50 noughts is impossible. So DNA could not possibly have evolved by spontaneous generation, as the evolutionists would like us to believe. In fact, it gets more complicated for the evolutionists. You see, the cell is an incredibly complicated thing. Cells are incredibly complicated. There is no such thing as a simple cell. Within all cells, living cells, are DNA, and I told you a little bit about DNA. It's basically design code, but in order to get information to the periphery of the cell, the outside of their cell, the information has to be sent by what's called messenger RNA. That's a different type of code. It's called a messenger or transcription code. So we'll call it messenger RNA, and within the cytoplasm of the cell, that messenger RNA then creates amino acids or proteins in the periphery of the cell. Now I want to make this simple and try and show you the problem, because it's a very real problem. Now, I don't know where you're watching this. It might be in a church group, it might be on television, it might be at home, I have no idea. But whatever it is, I want you to imagine a bucket of primordial slime. I have no idea what that would look like, but I want you to imagine it anyway. And I want you to imagine that suddenly a mobile phone springs out of this bucket. And let me tell you that mobile phone technology is much, much simpler than the technology of DNA. Then I'm going to have in this television studio, I'm going to have another bucket of primordial slime. And out of my bucket automatically appears, by chance, by magic, another mobile phone, and at an agreed moment we both switch our phones on. Now, do you think we're going to be able to talk to each other on these magic phones which have appeared by chance in the primordial slime? I don't think so. Do you? Because I've got a mobile phone, I expect you've got one too. And the thing is that your phone and my phone has been programmed with special SIM cards so that they can talk to each other. So what the evolutionists want you to believe is that this all happened by chance, and that the two different types of DNA and RNA just automatically program themselves so they can understand each other. Do you understand the problem? It's just simply not possible. But it even gets more difficult than that for the evolutionists, because you may have heard that DNA is a right-handed helix. It's what we call dextrorotatory. That's because it has a right-handed twist. Now, that's both DNA and RNA. Now, the amino acids in all living systems are in fact left-handed. In the left-handed form, they're called levorotatory. That means it has a left-handed form. Now, coming back to this bucket of primordial slime, which you've got in your sitting room, wherever you're watching this, if that DNA could spontaneously evolve by chance, it would have, according to the laws of chance, have an equal proportion of left and right-handed forms of DNA. And let me tell you, that would be absolutely useless for life, because God designed the human body God designed the human body so that the human body only uses the right-handed form. And there's no way that life could evolve from a bucket of left and right-handed forms of DNA. Now, what was it like in the pre-flood Earth? What was it really like? The pre-flood Earth, of course, the flood was 4,400 years ago. And the question is, what was it like? Well, we do have quite a lot of clues. It was much warmer than it is now, and all over the world it was a uniform temperature. There was 50% more oxygen and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which meant that all the plants and the animals and the fishes and the birds and the humans were much larger. They had much, much longer lifespans with less disease because of the protective effect of the vapor canopy and higher oxygen pressure. You see, bugs that I was a medical doctor for nearly 30 years, and bacteria and viruses and fungi, they hate oxygen. Well, if you've got a very high oxygen content, you automatically have the oxygen to kill off all the bugs, kill off all the fungi and bacteria and viruses. Humans were much taller. We can tell that from the fossil record. Humans were, I think, much more intelligent. That's only my guess. Animals and insects were much larger. We can tell that from the fossil record. And there was abundant vegetation, much, much more vegetation than we now see. Remember I told you earlier about the canopy of water overhead and water under the crust of the earth. So at the time of the flood, that water under the crust of the earth, it broke up through the crust of the earth and caused fossils. And we're going to be looking at fossils later on. Remember the canopy of water up in the stratosphere, the water canopy? Well, it's very important, the water canopy, because it blocked out the X-ray and ultraviolet radiation from outer space. And X-ray radiation and ultraviolet radiation is very bad for our DNA. So it's very important it blocked it. Let through visible light and also warmth in the form of infrared. So the increased partial pressure of the oxygen in the pre-flood atmosphere made the animals and the fish, they were able to grow much bigger and much more of them. There you can see on that slide, you can see the crust of the earth with the water breaking through at the time of Noah's flood, which was 4,400 years ago approximately. Now we know, we're absolutely certain, there was much more oxygen and carbon dioxide before Noah's flood, which was 4,400 years ago. Now some of the ladies who are watching this just may have some jewellery called amber. I don't know if you've heard of amber, and if you've got some, you probably know, but not everybody knows, it's actually petrified tree sap. It's actually a tree sap, that sticky stuff that flows down the outside of trees. It's tree sap that was actually petrified or fossilized at the time of the flood, 4,400 years ago. Now, you can go to a jewellery shop near where you live, and you can buy amber, but they won't sell you probably this type of amber, which is quite common, with an insect trapped in it. That's an insect trapped in petrified tree sap. So they won't normally make that type of amber into jewellery. What they will do is give you amber without insects trapped in it, but with air bubbles in it. There's an air bubble trapped in the amber. And if you've got some amber, an amber ring or an amber necklace, have a look, and I'm almost sure you're going to see some bubbles in it. Now they've analysed those bubbles in the amber, and they found that pre-flood air has 50% more oxygen and 50% more carbon dioxide than it does now. And that's been reported in Time magazine in 1987. Now we know, even today, that if you put, for example, prawns or shellfish or whatever in oxygen-rich environments, they grow very much bigger. And here's a report from BBC News. They show that bugs growing in oxygen-rich waters near the North and South Poles grow up to 1,000 times heavier than those living off mainland Europe because of the high oxygen content of the water. So you can imagine the pre-flood, before the flood, when there was